Hey guys, this is Miss Humphrey again, and today we are going to be talking about evaluating sources. Um, and the big thing with evaluating sources that I want you guys to realize is that the skills we're going to be talking about, the research practices that we're going to be talking about today, are practices that you can use the rest of your life. So these are good practices for when you get to high school. They are great practices for when you get to college. I used these research practices when I was getting my master's just a handful of years ago. So be paying attention. All of this stuff is really important and also super useful for the rest of your life. So the big thing we need to think about when we are evaluating sources is that we live in an information rich world. We are saturated with information. So everywhere we look, everywhere you go online, there is information. Some of it is not real. Some of it is false. Some of it is true. And the big thing that you need to know how to be able to do is evaluate whether a source is really valid and true and credible, or if it's not. So we're going to be looking at a handful of things that you can look at when you look at a source to decide whether it is useful for your research or whether it is a red flag and should be dumped. So, when we're looking at evaluating a source, we look at authorship, publication, currency, and relevance, accuracy, purpose, and objectivity. And links. Links are for online sources, and for print sources, we're going to be looking more at reference pages. So let's look at the first thing, which is authorship. And this has to do with who published the content. So when you're looking at a source, ideally, you want to make sure that the author is hopefully an expert at the topic that they're talking about. So at the very least, they should look like they've put some sort of thought and research into what they've published. How to find out whether an author is an expert or not is if you are looking at a website, you're looking at a web page, you want to figure out who's the author and then how do you find out more about them. So websites will usually have an About Us page or a Contact Us, or they might have an author bio page for that particular author, and that's what you want to look at. That will give you more information about the author. If the author is just some random Joe who has put some information out on a website, on some sort of blog, maybe not so great. If this particular author shows that they are a professor of something, or that they've got a couple of degrees, or that their career field, what they do for their job is specific to the topic, we can count them as a credible expert on the content. If you're using a print source, there will be a page usually at the end of the book that's about the author, and that will give you some information on the author. Realize that it takes a lot to get a book published. And so if an author is publishing, especially a nonfiction book, and it is informational, they probably have a big publisher who is backing them, and they are probably someone who's fairly credible to be publishing a book. So consider that as well when you're looking through that information. The second thing is looking at the publication of the source, so where it was published and who published it. So for a website, obviously it's, published to the internets, but what you want to figure out is looking at, if you don't have a specific author, or even if you do have an author, you want to see what the company is that has the authority that is behind this website or this book. So to find this out, you look at the bottom of a website and you see who has copyrighted the material. So, at the very bottom, it might say, whatever company copyright 2020. That is the name of the company, and that's what you want to look into. So you can do further research, you can do Googling, you can read their About Them page. The other thing that you can do is when you consider who is publishing this information, if the website ends in a .edu, it's usually some sort of educational group that is publishing this information. If it's .org, it's an organization. And if it's .gov, it's some sort of government group. They are usually trustworthy sources. They are not always trustworthy sources. So you need to still make sure that you're considering all the other aspects of the website before you just automatically decide, oh, this is a .org, so it is reliable, because that is not always necessarily the case. Other things to consider: look at the website name, look at the URL, which is the link at the top, and then look at their logo. Really, you want to look at the website, especially as a whole, and consider, does this look like a professional site? Does it look like they've put some legitimate money behind what they're publishing, or is this some rinky-dink, whatever? Because that's a little bit less credible. For the third thing, we're going to look at currency and relevancy. And this is going to be the when it was published and whether it actually relates to your topic or not. So when we talk about currency as it relates to sources, we're not talking about money. We're talking about whether or not this information is current. And currency is more complicated than that. There's a whole formula for it. But for our purposes, we just really want to consider, when was this published? Is this information current? So, for example, if you look at a copyright date, that might be fairly helpful as guidance. If it's a website that was published, last time it was updated was maybe 2010, you're looking at some information that's 10 years old, and it might not be as up to date as we would like. Another example is if maybe I'm looking at some information that is in a science textbook, and that textbook was published in 1960. While there might be some information that is still accurate, there's going to be a lot of information that's just out of date, and that makes it not current. You want current information when you're doing your research. That being said, primary sources are going to look a little bit different. So with a primary source, you're looking at a source whose information is from a primary person in some sort of aspect, right? So it's maybe from somebody who was there at the event. It's maybe a physical letter that somebody wrote, or an actual speech, or some sort of recording of some kind that is true to that event or that topic or whatever. So your primary source doesn't have to be from 2020. It can't be. And for primary sources, sources that are closest in time, really, to your event or your topic or your person, that's good. That's what we want. We want primary sources that are closest to that date. So the Declaration of Independence is a primary source, and the Declaration of Independence, being as old as it is so much more relevant and pertinent to your topic than reading a textbook about the Declaration of Independence. So obviously, a primary source is going to be an exception to the rule. For example, if I was doing some sort of research on the 9/11 attacks that happened in New York in 2001, a phone call recording of somebody to a friend who was in New York at the time that it was happening, that eyewitness account, that primary source is going to be so much more relevant than reading in the history textbook that was published in 2020 about the 9/11 attacks. So you want current information, but the currency aspect doesn't really fully apply to your primary sources, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so when you think about relevance, you want to think about how significant the information is to your topic. So your primary sources are going to be incredibly relevant to your topic, and that's awesome. But when you're looking at websites and non-primary sources, you want to make sure that it relates to your topic. You want to make sure that the author isn't rambling about all sorts of different things, that they're staying on topic, that the information that they provide is current and that it is valid. You want to make sure that the author is staying objective and informing the reader of something, that they're not trying to argue or prove some sort of point. And you just ultimately want to make sure it relates to your topic. It's not some sort of random whatever. Okay, so the fourth thing we're going to look at is accuracy. And this has to do with the truthfulness of the source, the integrity of the author. Hopefully they are telling you the truth about things. So if you look at accuracy is two things. So the first thing is when we talk about accuracy in writing, we're talking about their correctness as far as like grammar and spelling mistakes. Are they proofreading the writing, or is it clear that they just randomly put this together and there are mistakes all over the place? The other aspect of accuracy is the correctness of their information. And so to verify that the information that they've put is correct, you can easily do another search on that particular statement or that fact that you want to verify. And you should be able to verify it from other sources as well if it is something that is true. If you do a quick search on that information and you're finding that there's other information online that is contradictory of what the author has said, that is opposite of what the author has said, that shows us that maybe their information is not valid and that it's actually false. Or maybe the author is giving a skewed perspective of this information, and that's also a problem. Okay, the fifth thing that you're going to look at is the purpose and the objectivity of the author. You want to consider why the information has been written and how it is being presented. So, is the author trying to inform us of something? Are they wanting to persuade or argue or some other purpose? You want to consider the author's biases. They fall into this category as well. If there are clear biases that are driving their words, you're going to want to reconsider this source. So think about objectivity and subjectivity. If they're being objective, they are making sure that their opinion is not at the forefront of this information. They're keeping their opinion out of it. They're just talking about this information. If an author is being subjective, it means that they're being heavily influenced and sharing their opinions. So, you don't want an author that's really heavily influenced by their opinions and is sharing those opinions as well. You want an author that is staying objective with their information. So the best way to figure out, like, is somebody staying objective or are they not? Do they have a lot of biases? Do they not? You want to look at their word choice. If they're using a lot of neutral words, that's a good sign. If they're using a lot of words that feel really negative or really positive, that's a bad sign. You want to make sure that they're backing up their statements with valid evidence, not just spewing their opinions left and right and making outlandish claims that they can't verify. The other thing to consider when you're looking at author's bias, especially with big name brand news sources, this is a really great article from a media professor named Ben Peters. He's from the University of Tulsa. And if you click on this link, it is going to send you to this article that he wrote in August that gives you lots of different tips on how to use media and how to know when it's good, when it's bad, when it's super biased, when it's not. And I'm not going to read you this whole article, but it is incredibly valuable. So if you get an opportunity, do click on that and read through it. The last thing to consider is links. And for websites, it's going to be actual links, exactly what you would think it would be. And for print sources, it's going to be a reference page of some kind at the end, kind of like a bibliography page. So how to find whether your source is linking things. If you go to a Wikipedia page, for example, and you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see references. And so those are at the bottom of the site. Some of those things are linked and some of them are not. So some of them might be book resources. Articles might link key phrases or events or ideas within their article. And so an article that is written with the intent to inform is probably going to have a lot of information linked, which is good. When you click on those links, though, you also want to go through that same process of making sure that their information that they linked in is actually valid and good and helpful. For a print source, if it's really well done, there should be citations either throughout the text with footnotes, or you'll see a reference page at the back, and maybe both. And references are really great resources for finding more sources. So if you find a book, for instance, on Alice Walker, and it's a really great resource with all sorts of information about her. If you flip to the back, you'll see a references page, and there are multiple pages of sources there. And so if you found this particular book to be really helpful, you can go and look at all the other books that the authors cite. And that could provide even more research for you. So the reference page is really invaluable for getting you more sources. And then lastly, there is if you click on this link, it's going to send you to an infographic that is incredibly helpful. If you scroll in a little bit, it addresses all of the big things that we've talked about in a really easy way. So it's just a checklist. So we've got authorship, we have currency and relevance, accuracy, purpose and objectivity, and links. And then there's a little blurb towards the end about the structure of a website, like how it's actually organized, information about it, which could be incredibly helpful for you for when you're trying to decide, like, is this .com website really that great? They've got some information on top level domains. And yeah, so I got this from Hosting Facts, which if you want more information, they have some really great information on their website as well about credible sources. So let's do this. I'm going to go through a couple different websites that I looked up for the transatlantic cable. And we're going to go through the same process of looking through these big things, utilizing the websites that I found. So the first website that I found was from Ieee Spectrum, and the article is called "The First Transatlantic Telegraph Cable Was a Bold, Beautiful Failure." And so, this is just from a simple Google search. I just did transatlantic cable, and this is one of the things that came up. So I know nothing about Ieee Spectrum. I don't know anything about the author, Allison March. So let's just go through the process of seeing, is this a valid source that I can trust? So looking at the date, one of the first things we see is the date, and it was published about a year ago, which is fine. That's great. At least it's not 10 years old. A year old is not that bad. If I scroll a little bit as I look at this article, I see that there are lots of different links here to different people. So this is good. This is a good sign. So if we click on one of these, it is going to redirect us to a biography about this particular person. And at the end of that page, it has further reading with information that's linked, which is also a really good sign. So let's go back. So lots of things are linked, which is a really great sign to start off with. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom to see if I can find any more information about this author. Okay, so about the author, Allison March. She's an associate professor of history at the University of South Carolina, and she's a co-director of the university's Ann Johnston Institute for Science, Technology, and Society. So I think we can say that Allison March is probably an expert in her field, especially in working with an Institute for Science, Technology, and Society. So she probably knows what she's talking about. So that's a really great sign. The other thing I noticed is that this article seemed to appear in a print issue. And it was titled by a different name, but that's also a good sign. If this article was not only printed, published here electronically on the web, but it was also printed physically in a magazine, that's a really great sign. So Ieee Spectrum, I don't know anything about these people, so I'm going to go down to the bottom and see if I can find an About Us page maybe. Okay, so here's an About Ieee. So let's click on that and see what we can find. All right, about them. They are the world's largest technical and professional organization dedicated to advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. Okay. So they kind of have an agenda, it looks like, and that agenda is advancing technology, but it looks like they want to benefit people through it. So it doesn't come across as incredibly biased. It looks like a professional organization of some kind, even with lots of different members. It looks like they've gotten some awards and recognitions that we could look at more if we wanted to. You can get a job there. So seems like it's pretty legitimate. So I would say this article here could be really helpful, and I wouldn't have any problems using some of this information and citing it. So good start. The other article I found was from Wired magazine, which is also online, and this was kind of the same process. It's an older article, so it's about 9 years old. But they've got citations everywhere, lots of similar information. Or I guess not citations, but links to where they found this information, which is helpful. If I go down, well, if I go towards the bottom, it just keeps going. But the author is here. I could look up more information about the author here, and I could find more about Wired magazine. So they've got jobs, they've got events, there's all sorts of stuff so that we could look into to double check. But Wired basically checks out the same as this source as well. So let's look at one that's kind of questionable. This was another one that I found that talked about how a cable changed finance. So for starters, if I'm looking at the transatlantic cable and how it maybe changed or influenced communication, this article about how it changed finance isn't really relevant to my topic. So even if they've got little bits of information in here that might be helpful, this isn't really relevant to my topic. So when we talk about relevance, this is it. This is not relevant. So the other thing, so it's about a year old, which is not bad. I don't see any links in here, which is a problem. Nothing is linked, and there are no citations at the end. They do have further reading. That is not the same as a reference. If it said reference instead of further reading, that would let us know that this is the information where this guy got his information from. It doesn't say that. It says further reading. So these might be some great places for me to go for more information or for more research. But they're not the same as citations or references. And so this person has a lot of stuff here that we don't know where their information came from. So that's a problem. If we click on About TCH, this is going to tell us hopefully a little bit about the author. This person started the blog a couple years ago. And he's been writing a lot. This author, Daniel, we can find more information from his LinkedIn page, which is kind of strange. This is just really a blog that doesn't have any citations at all, but gives us some further reading, which we appreciate, and we could use those, but this is just not a relevant source. Okay, so let's look at this other one that I found. This is a good example of what not to look at. This is it's woollydays.wordpress.com. So this is a blog, totally a blog. Let's see, if we go to the article that we had, the article is called Cyrus Field and the Transatlantic Cable. It was written in 2016, not a big deal. It's showing that the author is still currently writing because there are clearly some posts from September and October. So they're still active, but again, some of the things that we have are not clearly cited or linked, but they're here. But it's kind of some random stuff like the inventor of Jell-O. That's not really relevant. Not much else is linked. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, there are no citations anywhere to be found, no references of any kind. So I don't know where any of this is coming from. And this is the worst part, in my opinion. There is some person who commented on this blog post and said that Bill said that he would appreciate a credit to his site for the photograph of Cyrus Field used in this post. And then Bill links to his website that has the picture. So Bill is calling out our friend Derek Barry because Derek Barry used a picture here and didn't credit it to this guy, which is where it came from originally. So the fact that we have an author who essentially stole a picture from somebody else's website and didn't give them any credit to say like, hey, I got this picture from this website. That's a huge red flag. And that's incredibly unprofessional. So if we were to click on the about, he says that he's been a blogger for over 15 years and an editor and a journalist for the last 10, but clearly he doesn't have the best practices as far as citing information goes. So anyway, this is one of those sites that you just absolutely want to avoid. So other good sites, BBC is great. It's one of your name brand news sources that's good. And then we've got the Library of Congress, which is great for primary sources and things like that. And I will talk more about really great resources in a different lesson. But that kind of brings us to the end. As always, if you have any questions or you want some help, you can fill out a Google form and we can schedule a meet before or after school or during Miss Goodman's class if you want a little bit more help. And hopefully this helped you to evaluate your sources as you're doing research. So happy hunting.